All right, this is Truth Be Told. I'm Tony Sweet and Captain Ron. We're back. We are going to speak with another amazing guest that we've had on before, but he's also going to be a main speaker at the Contact in the Desert, May 31st through June 3rd this year, and we're going to be there, and I hope you guys can join us. But we have with us today an amazing guy all the way from the UK, but he lives here now in the United States. But Nick Pope used to run the British government UFO project from 1991 to 1994. He researched and investigated UFOs, alien abduction, crop circles, and other strange phenomena. He is a fixture on numerous TV shows and has written 5 best-selling books. So please welcome to Truth Be Told, the one and only Nick Pope. There he is.
It's good to be on the show.
It is so great to have you back again. It's wonderful.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I know Captain Ron, he has like a question he just can't get off his mind. So go for it, Captain
Let's
Ron.
just jump in with that. Yeah, Nick, we have short time, so I want to jump in with you here. But so as we all know, you worked for the Ministry of Defense in the UK, and you had access to all of the UFO files. I mean, UAP files, as you guys call them. Unidentified aerial phenomenon. Yet, after seeing all of that information, isn't it true that your opinion of governments, at least the UK government, not having any UFOs or alien bodies in some warehouse somewhere, you believe that's not true? Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely right. That's exactly my position. I think when it comes to the UFO phenomenon, my take is, yes, there is much more to this phenomenon than aircraft lights, weather balloons, and hoaxes. There is something going on. It's in our airspace. Our pilots see them and chase them. Our radar operators track them. Speeds and maneuvers that seem ahead of anything we've got. But I don't hold the view, as some in the UFO community do, that this constitutes definitive, you can take it to the bank proof. I think it's intriguing evidence of something, but it's not proof. And until I see some definitive smoking gun, I think we should continue to refer to this as what it is in my mind, the UFO mystery, not a solved mystery. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I have not seen any evidence that the UK government has crashed alien spaceships, dead aliens in a hangar somewhere. Now, look, if they have that in the US, fine. I wouldn't have been briefed on that. We were a very national-orientated program.
Well, but of course you're an insider, and some people would speculate that you're in fact part of the cover-up yourself, right?
Oh, I get that all the time, and
well, there you go.
You can't. I guess it's the old adage of you can't prove a negative. If I say, how could I prove it to you that I'm not working for the government still? Right. How would you answer that question? I know I'm being mischievous here,
right,
flipping the question round, but you see my point.
Sure,
I mean,
of course.
You can't really disprove it. I could say, no, honestly, I'm not. I won't, but I could show you my bank accounts and say, look, they're not paying me. And people would say, well, you've got another bank account, or they're paying you in cash, or you're doing it for Queen and country, or president and country, depending on who you think's paying me.
So the good news is it seems like the UK is actually declassifying and releasing a lot of these documents, right?
Absolutely. And it is good news. It's a long haul. We started this about 11 years ago. See, I said we.
It slipped.
You can't work for the government for 21 years and have it so hardwired into you and suddenly stop calling it we and start calling it they. And to be fair, they did ask me. Now, this is a sort of semi-working for the government. They did ask me to come out of retirement and help with the launch process for this. So my goodness, I've done about a zillion BBC TV and radio interviews to publicize this. But yes, we have declassified and released almost the entire archive.
Wow.
About 60,000 pages of documents, some of them highly classified, only 2 files still to go out of about, I think, 220, something like that out. I've lost count. It's taken 11 years, but it's a good news story for those people interested in all this. It's better out than in.
Because despite all this release, Tony and I feel like there really hasn't been that much new information in this UFO abduction world. Like, very little things really trickle out. Even in those 60,000 documents, there hasn't been any bombshells. The closest we got was that Pentagon thing in December that they admitted they spent $22 million, and they had that Tic Tac UFO being chased on tape. What did you think of that?
Oh, absolutely fascinating. The story of the Pentagon's ATIP program is undeniably the biggest news story in the UFO field for years. But I go back to your point. Yes, I agree, actually. If you look at those 60,000 pages of documents that we released, yeah, a fair number of them by volume is just, Mr. and Mrs. Smith out walking their dog late at night, and they see a funny light in the sky. Whoop-de-doo.
Right.
Yeah.
So I agree with you in on the one hand. But on the other hand, I would say to you, it's quality, not quantity. And I wouldn't worry that only a few dozen of those documents are interesting. The interesting ones are pretty fascinating. And they talk, for example, about technology acquisition. They talk about how the Russians and the Chinese are looking at this. And that is almost identical to some of the material that's now coming out about the Pentagon program. And on that, I would say, yes, this is the big story. And what I think is going on behind the scenes now is probably the most interesting part of it. And what seems to be going on behind the scenes is lobbying and discussions with a view to taking the current congressional interest in this. And I know 100% there is congressional interest in this. The House Armed Services Committee has had a look at this. The Senate Armed Services Committee is investigating. The real question is, can the lobbying and the discussion that's going on behind the scenes now turn this congressional interest into formal congressional hearings, maybe public, maybe not? I don't know the answer to that. And perhaps now this Russia inquiry is out of the way, maybe politicians can look at some other things, and maybe UAP will be one of those other things. Watch this space.
Well, I know before the 2016 election, I won't say who it was, but I had a great conversation with someone in this field that, very well known. We talked for over an hour about, who would win the election and who had hoped to win the election. And Hillary Clinton was hoped to win because they felt that they were going to release a lot of the documents, a lot of the disclosure that we've been looking for. And when that didn't happen, and I know with Captain Ron and I have talked about this many times with the new administration, 2.5 years in, maybe because of all the investigations going on, we have not heard nothing about anything in this field.
Not one word from this administration.
Not one word. So what do you think? Do you think this administration could still do some disclosure? Have you heard anything from your side? And do you think, is it only the president that's going to have the clout to even make a difference to disclose any information?
Okay, well, let me back up a little time-wise and tell a story which I think will maybe contextualize some of this. Back in, I think, summer of 2011, I attended a closed meeting in Washington, D.C., chaired by John Podesta, and at which a number of people with government, military, and intelligence community backgrounds had a chance to brief on this issue. And one of the things that I brought to that meeting was something you alluded to earlier, actually. It's the fact that in the UK, we in the Ministry of Defense reframed the debate about this phenomenon by changing the language, dropping UFO, which had too much pop culture baggage
Right.
associated with it, and replacing it with UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena. And John Podesta and another number of other people were extremely interested in that. A couple of years later, I was watching the Jimmy Kimmel show, and Hillary Clinton was being interviewed, and she was asked about UFOs and her interest in this and her promise that if elected, she would go find out what was happening at Area 51, look into the files, disclose what she found. And Hillary stopped and interrupted Jimmy Kimmel and said, no, there is a new term for this now, and it's UAP. So I knew that point and the other points that I'd briefed in that meeting had gotten directly, personally to Hillary Clinton. And clearly, there were a number of people, most of the media commentators and political commentators thought that Hillary was going to win the election. She didn't. That clearly, in the mind's eye of many people in the UFO community, derailed what they felt was going to be a disclosure process from a would-be president favorably disposed towards this subject. And the new administration, frankly, we don't know which way they're going to go on this. Clearly, the president has had other things on his mind for a couple of years, but actually with the inquiry now concluded and published, maybe, just maybe, this is an interesting and important time, and maybe some other issues will now come to the fore. But I don't know, and as I say, this is running in parallel with whatever is going on behind the scenes with congressional interest. So there are a lot of things, a lot of balls in the air at the moment.
Well, I was going to say that.
Careful, go ahead.
Never mind. Well, do you think maybe, it's not going to rely just on the United States? I mean, there's Vladimir Putin, there's China going to the moon, the dark side of the moon. There's a lot of different countries now that are making waves of, that and can change the direction of the ufology.
Anybody could disclose.
Anybody, but do you think maybe Vladimir or China might be able to step up and disclose before the U.S.?
Well, it depends, and I know that this is something I repeat a lot, but it's an absolutely central point. It depends what we think there is to disclose. If there is, and I guess this goes back to the scenario we discussed right at the top of the interview. Right. If there literally is somewhere a spaceship in a hangar, I guess whoever has that can disclose if they so wish. But I don't know who, if anyone, has got that. And maybe the answer is no one has. Maybe.
And if you did, why would you disclose it?
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Why would you disclose it if you did have that?
Well, why indeed? Particularly if you are trying to, as the theory goes, maybe back engineer that technology and figure it out. Well, the moment you disclose it, look, let's suppose there's a scenario where one nation has that, but hasn't yet figured out the tech. Why would that nation disclose? Right. Particularly when other people are or would be in the race as soon as that information was out there. My goodness, country X has this. We'd better get it out. And we know, obviously we know that the US has a program, the UK had a program, Russia has or had a program, the Chinese too, but I don't know. I know what we did and didn't have in the UK and what we knew and what we didn't know, but I have much less of a knowledge about the situation in the US and very little idea of what Russia or China or indeed anyone else has. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's the French.
Huh.
Yeah.
You never know. Talking to him, it feels like, not just today, but just hearing him, it seems like he's of the attitude that we don't really necessarily have as much as some of the people in the UFO community believe. They believe that our government's got alien bodies in one place, alien ships in another place, and all this great material. It's possible we don't have any of that.
It's absolutely possible. And if you look at and read between the lines of the still unfolding story of the Pentagon's UFO program, one of the interesting things that came out of the letter that the Defense Intelligence Agency sent to Congress, where they listed the outputs, the products produced, as the terminology has it, under the ATIP program, and they listed those 38 studies that they'd been doing. My point is this: if you're doing all these studies into something, it rather suggests that we don't know the answer. You don't do a study into something if you've got all the answers and everything's kind of understood and all nicely packaged up and squared away. No, you study something because you don't understand it. So I think you're absolutely right in certainly in your characterization of my view. We don't have a handle on this. And I think, again, if you listen to some of the people who were involved with that program, like Luis Elizondo, he will complain that there were roadblocks in the Pentagon and that more should be done on this. But for a number of reasons, people pushed back against the thought of doing serious scientific research into this phenomenon. Well, again, if people like Elizondo are saying we should be doing more, we should be initiating a conversation with the American people, we should be having a debate, we should be studying this in a more scientific manner, that to me again suggests that we don't have all the answers here. And it's one of the great ironies of this subject that the UFO community, or parts of the UFO community, seem much more certain about who knows what and what this elusive phenomenon is than those of us, those handful of us on the record, who have actually looked at this from inside government. And we're not afraid to say we don't know.
Well, what's funny is because you're very well liked in this ufology, but but I'm saying
not
is how
by everyone.
But how
I mean, there are a number of people who think I'm one of the bad guys.
But
here.
that's what I'm saying. But it's funny how you went from kind of disagreeing with a lot of other people's philosophies and to be able to even get into a lot of these conferences to where that's what people want to hear. They want to hear the UFO.
But if you wanted to have an insider,
I think it's great.
That's who you'd have. Though.
I know,
that's
but
the only
I
terrible
think
thing.
it's great. I think it's great to hear both sides because it's kind of like when you walk in and it's everybody's the same. It's like it's like that kind of gets kind of What I'm saying. But I love.
He's the only one that knows.
Here's the thing. I mean, sometimes I go to UFO conferences and I see people, get up almost like some sort of New Age messiahs and tell the audience. So this is about they'll give everyone a rundown of all the different species and all the different programs, and then I come on and I say I actually did this for the government, and sadly the truth is that we don't really know. And I'm not as popular as the sort of New Age guru types who frankly, I think sometimes are telling the audiences exactly what they want to hear. Well, I make no bones about it. I make no apologies. I am not going to necessarily tell the audience what they want to hear. And sometimes I'm very sure I'm telling the audience what they absolutely don't want to hear. And people react in different ways. They'll say, oh, well, this is just disinformation from Nick. Or they'll say, well, Nick's being sincere, but maybe he wasn't briefed on this. Maybe somebody else was behind the scenes with all the answers. And then I'm back to that business of not being able to prove a negative.
Something fascinating here is when we have people in here to interview, one of my favorite things to ask them and that I genuinely want to know is, where are you getting this information? Because that's always really important to me. I know where you're getting your information. You were in the Ministry of Defense. We had somebody in here recently, and they were saying that they speculated on what the IQ of a particular kind of alien was. And I thought to myself, now, where are you getting that information? See, that's harder for me.
Yes.
Because that's really a reach.
Absolutely. In my 21 years working for the Ministry of Defense, obviously most of my jobs that I had there, most postings that I was given, had nothing to do with UFOs. I did a security job, I did a finance job. Most of the things I did had
Urinal cakes.
yeah, well, but I mean, seriously, Kosovo, Iraq, counterterrorism, those were the sorts of things that were bread and butter to me during my 21-year career. One thing I learned in the course of those jobs was you always, whether you're an analyst or a briefer, whatever you're doing, when you're giving information to, for example, Secretary of State for Defense, senior military officers, whoever it is, you absolutely must differentiate between what you know and what you think. There's nothing wrong with speculating, and sometimes those people will put you on the spot and say, well, what do you think? But before you get to that point, you have to absolutely lay out what you know, how you know it, what your sources are, and how you evaluate those sources in terms of reliability, which is a whole matrix about previous information supplied by those sources, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I share your frustration when people come out with these wild things and you say to them, how do you know that? And they just say either, well, I just know,
right,
or it's top secret. Everything that I tell you, whether it's on this radio show, on the TV shows that I do, or at conferences like Contact in the Desert, whatever it is, I will tell people where I'm getting this. And I will say, this comes from my Ministry of Defense job, and they are declassifying and releasing the files, so go check, here are the references. Or when I talk, for example, one of the things that I've done recently is I've made 4 separate appearances on Tucker Carlson Tonight on Fox News. I looked this morning, just out of curiosity, for anyone who thinks this is a fringe subject, one of my interviews has 2 million views on YouTube. And
was that on Truth Be Told by chance?
No. So
He's like,
I
no.
get that's one of my that was one of my Tucker Carlson interviews. But the point is this: I get on that show because I was able to say to the producers, this is the congressional record where it discussed this. Here is the letter from the Defense Intelligence Agency, which I have obtained this morning from the DIA's Office of Corporate Communications. If anyone is skeptical about that, go and ask them. So I
appreciate that so much. I mean, that's the exciting thing about having you versus some other people that are way more speculative.
Yeah, what I do now, I do as a broadcaster and journalist. And for example, one of the other things that I did recently was I wrote up a fairly short summary of the story about the Pentagon UFO program, what we know, what we don't know, for The Guardian, one of the UK's most highly respected national daily newspapers. And my goodness, as is the case when I write for anyone at that level, like the New York Times, whoever it is, whichever editor commissions you to write, they want a fact check, they want hyperlinks to government websites, congressional websites, National Archives websites. They don't just want my say-so for it, and rightly so.
Well, I mean, great point, because I think a lot of people, they want fact. They don't just want, like you said, speculation. But we're going to take a 30-second break. We have to have George talk a little bit about Contact in the Desert, where Nick Pope's going to be May 31st through June the 3rd. So we'll all be there, and we hope you can join us. But let's hear it straight from George. We'll be right back.
Join me, George Norrie, in Indian Wells, California, May 31st to June 3rd for the Contact in the Desert UFO Conference, an epic weekend of exploration into ancient aliens, human origins, crop circles, and UFO sightings. More than 100 lectures, panels, workshops, and events with leading experts like Giorgio Tsoukalos, David Wilcock, Linda Moulton Howe, Eric Von Daniken, Doc Wallach, and so many more. Get your tickets today at contactinthedesert.com. It's time to make contact, contactinthedesert.com.
All right, we're back. We have the
Okay.
amazing Nick Pope, and I'm Tony Sweet.
I literally thought you were going to say the amazing Captain Ron. I thought that's what you were going to say.
Not the amazing Kreskin. There.
Amazing Kruskin. Mr. Pope, I was going to ask you this. You've been very clear on your position that you don't know what this phenomenon is, the ET phenomenon, as we call it in this community. I'm always looking for the strongest evidence to prove an extraterrestrial presence or something to that effect. For example, I think that the megalithic sites here on Earth, like Baalbek, Lebanon, or Ollantaytambo in the Andes, these are very hard to explain conventionally. So I think that's evidence that possibly somebody from elsewhere came here, or we clearly had high technology in the past. What do you think about things like that? I know you don't necessarily believe ETs have been here, so I'm wondering what you feel about ancient sites like that.
Well, that's not my specialist subject. Obviously, I am a regular on shows like Ancient Aliens where this sort of thing comes up, but I tend to be on the episodes where we talk much more about pilot sightings, radar evidence, and the modern UFO phenomenon. And I know Ancient Aliens have run a number of episodes more on that. I think I'll leave the ancient site discussions to people like Giorgio Tsoukalos, David Childress, Linda Moulton Howe, and many others. I mean, I think there are some undeniably fascinating mysteries from our past, but I think the only kind of word of warning that I would sound on that is let's not be too quick to say, aliens did this. Human beings are pretty smart too. And I think we do our ancestors a disservice if we say they couldn't have done these things. I think some of the answers, not necessarily all, as I say, this isn't my field of specialism, but I think we do know that our ancestors probably had a better understanding of mathematics, geometry, architecture, engineering, astronomy, etc., than we often give them credit for. So probably a better understanding than I have, actually.
I understand, and it is precisely because this is not your area of expertise that I thought I'd come to you with, since you don't feel that ET's been here. And listen, Tony's the first to tell you.
I don't rule it out.
Right.
I don't rule it out.
I'm very skeptical of most things we talk about on this show. Very skeptical, and I always want to know sources, and I always want to know why. But I am very open to the extraterrestrial presence and even the abduction thing. And one more question I'd push towards you is, what about, for example, the case of Roswell, where Don Schmitz compiled all these firsthand accounts of colonels in the Army who, on their deathbed, write these things that they want their granddaughter to know that they saw an alien being and that this really happened. And I find that stuff very compelling. And these abductees, some of them are very compelling. In your personal, I know this isn't your area of expertise, but just personally, do you find that kind of compelling or interesting at all? Because I do.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. It is compelling. And I'm not one of these people who says, it's only eyewitness testimony, and therefore it's worthless in evidential terms. No, nonsense. Eyewitness testimony and written testimony, whether it's deathbed testimony or recollections from retired military personnel and intelligence community personnel. I mean, my goodness, the day we stop ignoring testimony will be a very sad day. And of course, testimony lies at the heart, for example, of our criminal justice system, which couldn't function without it. So of course, testimony is extremely important, interesting, and often compelling. Having said that, I think when it comes to pushing us over the line and turning intriguing evidence into that definitive, you can take it to the bank proof, then I think you will need a little bit more than that. And by a little bit more, I mean, we have things that help. We have some good photos and videos, a lot of fake ones, of course, but certainly there are people in the intelligence community imagery analysis field who know a thing or two about that. So that's important. We have radar data. we have some physical trace evidence, radioactivity from landing sites, soil samples. Some people have talked, for example, about these meta materials, which are part of the ATIP story. That's still unfolding. I think, though, with my skeptical hat on, what we will need to push us over that line is something even more than that. And we would frankly need some sort of artifact that was capable of doing something that we simply couldn't do.
Do you know that, Tony, a little bird told me that Mr. Pope is looking for that little piece of evidence, that he actually wrote an article in the Roswell paper calling on people to come up with some evidence. Is that true?
That is true. And
I love this idea.
It wouldn't surprise me that if there is evidence of crashed spaceships, it wouldn't surprise me if some of that evidence, or at least the best chance that we've got of getting that evidence out, came from the fact that people take souvenirs. And let's just suppose the US government does have a spaceship in a hangar somewhere. They're not going to show you that.
No.
They're not going to give you that. But maybe, just maybe, somebody will be rooting through the attic somewhere, maybe in Roswell, maybe somewhere else, and there'll be a little box of their grandfather's mementos, the medals, the photos, and a little box, and oh, wait, what's this?
I love this. I love this. Why
so,
couldn't
yes,
that be possible? That's very possible.
That's why I wrote that article as a plea to the people of Roswell. Go check your attics and go check your mantelpiece for that little trinket box.
That could change the world.
Absolutely.
When we hope somebody that, because like it is true. I mean, how many times that, I remember cleaning out many houses around where I grew up and finding trinkets from great grandparents left over from
the war,
grenades. You're like, oh, things that you didn't hope to find and things you were hoping to find. So, good luck with that, and please let us know what turns up.
Will do, and absolutely, this is one of my favorite sound bites on all of this. The believers have to be. Pardon me, I'm misquoting myself. The skeptics have to be right every day, but the believers only have to be right once.
I love that.
So that goes back again to the quantity versus quality argument about all this. It doesn't matter if we have a lot of fake documents and YouTube videos and a lot of kind of people in this field telling tall tales. It only needs one thing to push us over the line. It's just a question of who, what, when, and where.
Mm-hmm. Totally. We never asked them this. What's the difference between the attitudes about UFOs and things in America versus the UK? Let's get it first. We tried to ask Yvonne earlier. Let's see. Yeah, someone will know.
No, I really don't think there's much difference. At first, I thought there might be some sort of cultural factors at play, but I've lived in the US since January 2012 now, and frankly, I don't think there's a difference. I think kind of America, kind of like most things, does it a little bit bigger and a little bit better maybe, but in terms of how people view it, I don't think there's a perception. I think if you went to various countries in Africa, in Asia, maybe where we don't hear much about how this subject is viewed, what cases there may or may not be, whether anyone is really researching this in detail, I think there we would find some differences. But whether that's a difference in the phenomenon or whether it's a kind of difference in human perception, be it religious, cultural, linguistic, national, whatever, I don't know.
Nick, time's getting away from us, but I do want to ask this. What do you think about the efforts of the To the Sky Academy?
To the stars.
I mean,
yes.
Sorry. Yeah, to the stars. Yeah, sorry. My
I support
Tony.
them. I mean, there are some great people in that organization. I've met some of them. I've met Luis Elizondo. I've met Hal Puthoff. Some of the other people who I don't think I've met, people like Steve Justice and Jim Semivan, obviously big players in this. Some of the others, obviously Tom DeLonge is somebody whose passion and drive for this subject is really a force to be reckoned with. Yeah, I wish them well. They are doing interesting and important work. And I think Lou Elizondo said the other day in a conference somewhere that what's going on now is a lot of it by necessity is kind of behind closed doors, and he said something like, yeah, I get that people are frustrated. I get that everyone wants that kind of instant gratification and quick answers, but life isn't always quick and easy. I'm probably misquoting him, but I think I have the sense of it, and I agree with him 100%. I've come across similar issues myself, but I wish them well. They're doing some interesting things, and I hope that there will be more to report soon.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Now, you feel like you don't know if the aliens have been here or not, but doesn't it feel like it does to me that there certainly is a lot of smoke? We got a lot of abductees, contactees, people that claim that this has happened to them. We have a lot of speculation about all these cases, from Rendlesham Forest to Roswell, where there's been a lot of circumstantial evidence and testimonials. Like you said, we have testimonials. That to me gives some weight to this, some credibility, right? I mean, there's a chance.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, I'm not sitting here trying to dismiss all of this. Far from it. I don't rule out the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Of all the hypotheses around, I guess it's the one I hope turns out to be true. I mean, my goodness, wouldn't the world be more interesting with aliens in it than not? Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe it already is. We just don't know.
Right. Yes,
I mean, it could be. All of this stuff, it gets so complicated. It's hard to know what's real and what's not. That's what I get frustrated in the material that's out there and the different speakers. One guy makes it more cloudy than the next guy, and then maybe this guy's disinformation, and maybe this guy's lying, and this guy's hoaxing. It's so hard to pick and choose what's real.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why I say that in everything I do, I try to reference it to checkable sources that are reliable as well. I mean, all sorts of sources can be checkable but not reliable. So I think you've got to be both, and that's what I try to bring to this field.
He certainly does.
Oh, and we always love having you on, and we can't wait to see you at Contact in the Desert. Nick is a fixture there, and
it's reason enough to go right there.
You need to get your tickets, because I know a lot. We were saying earlier, a lot of the lectures and the workshops they sell out quickly, and it's a pleasure to always go see Nick and have him on the show. So please, always your open door policy here for you, because there's always information that's coming through, and you can put some reason to it. So we appreciate you.
Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you and all the viewers and listeners at Contact in the Desert.
All right. Well, until next time, this is Truth Be Told. Captain Ron, Tony Sweet. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave us comments and share this with your friends. Go to our website, truthbetoldworldwide.com, and see all the upcoming guests on Truth Be Told. Until next time, we'll see you right here on Truth Be Told. Bye.